Welcome everyone. My name is Father Martin Wawel Kamau. I'm a Jesuit priest of the Religious Society of Jesus, the Jesuits from Eastern Africa province. I'm a Kenyan citizen by birth, and I'm a proud alumnus of Loyola School of Theology, the licentiate class of 2015-2017. I'm currently on transition to my new mission as the headmaster of Loyola High School in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Until recently, I've been in a similar position in our other Jesuit school, Loyola Secondary School, which is located in a town called Wau in South Sudan. Wau is a small cosmopolitan town in the western Bahr el Ghazal state, located some 650 kilometers northwest of Juba, the capital city of South Sudan. Apart from the secondary school in Wau, we have other works, namely a parish and a multi-educational and agricultural institute in Rubeck, and a teacher training college in Shobet, besides other works by JRS in Yambio, Juba, and Maban. My presentation, I will be speaking with reference to Chapter 7 of Pope Francis' encyclical FRATELLI TUTTI, which is entitled Paths of Renewed Encounter. I will not have to go through the chapter summary since that has already been done by Father Wilbert. Mine is to share with you the experience of peacemaking and reconciliation in South Sudan, a process that Pope Francis in paragraph 30 refers to as building an essential culture of encounter, which means to witness God's love that is the basis for authentic and enduring solidarity in serving victims of war. To begin with, it is necessary to mention that the high point of this chapter is the value and promotion of peace. Pope Francis says that peace is connected to truth, justice, and mercy. South Sudan is a frontier unto itself and presents opportunities for the Church to proclaim the gospel of love that is defined by truth, justice, and mercy. Such is the context that Pope Francis invites everyone to pay close attention to. Particularly in the encyclical Fratelli Tutti, Pope Francis instructs that true peace must be based on truth along with justice and mercy. As a matter of fact, Pope Francis showed this very teaching after an unprecedented retreat at the Vatican in April 11 last year, 2019, when he knelt to kiss the feet of the previously warring leaders of South Sudan. We all probably remember this expression of a dramatic gesture to the leaders of South Sudan. The Pope urged the South Sudanese leaders to avoid civil war and seek peace and reconciliation. He appealed to the President Salva Kiir Mayardit, his former deputy who at the time turned rebel leader Riek Machar, and 3 other vice presidents to respect a peace agreement they had signed and commit to forming a unity government. The Church in South Sudan must echo this humble gesture on her way to promoting peace, reconciliation, and forgiveness. It is therefore critical to be available wherever we have been called to serve. We must bear a complete readiness to promote peace and reconciliation. In paragraph number 77 of this encyclical, Pope Francis urges, and I quote, "Like the chance traveler in the parable, we need only have a pure and simple desire to be a people, a community, constant and tireless in the effort to include, integrate, and lift up the fallen." End of quote. The experience of and with the people of South Sudan is the very same story of the chance traveler that is illustrated by Pope Francis in chapter 2 of this encyclical. Speaking during a Zoom session organized by Jesuits International on the topic, A Just Future for All, Solidarity with South Sudan, which can also be accessed on YouTube, Father Augustine Ekeno highlighted that millions of South Sudan, like the chance traveler in the parable of the Good Samaritan, have been beaten, stripped, and left half dead by the impact of violence conflict for over 50 years. Indeed, a protracted period of anguish that lasts for more than half a century is catastrophic. The people of South Sudan, ranging between 1 day old and 65 years old, know nothing else but a life of chronic atrocities that are beyond comprehension. Now, what happened and why the suffering for so long? Allow me to highlight a couple of basics for those who may not know Sudan and South Sudan very well. South Sudan is relatively a small country in population than inland area. The population of South Sudan is closely 12 million, and estimates are that around 60% are Christians, 33% followers of African traditional religions, 6% Muslims, and the rest unaffiliated. One wonders why a majority Christian country remains the most fragile and conflict-torn country in the world. Many people attribute this to competition for political power. The dream of independence and freedom was turned into a nightmare by the liberators reached to destroy the country they had spent 5 decades since 1952 fighting for it from the government of Sudan. Power struggle turned violent into political conflict, and subsequently, this conflict turned into increased ethnic violence. It is worth to note that South Sudan was rather not given independence by Sudan, but self-determination with the options of remaining part of Sudan or becoming an independent country, after which South Sudan went into referendum. In July 2011, South Sudan was granted independence and became the world's newest country. It was just 2.5 years after the momentous decision that South Sudan found itself embroiled in civil war. The country was in the grips of renewed civil war and political strife. The conflict was between forces of the government and opposition forces. High-risk behavior of leaders, reckless leaders in South Sudan, triggered ethnic violence. The president Salva Kiir from the Dinka ethnic community fired Riek Machar from the Nuer ethnic community from the vice presidency. It is sad to imagine the impact of the ethnic conflict that was neither a long-term plan, nor a planned genocide, nor a planned coup d'etat, nor a civil war. Whether we would like to see it differently or not, the responsibility, the escalation, and the near irreversible main mess of the conflict in South Sudan rested in the leaders of South Sudan themselves. In December 2013, President Kiir accused his former deputy Riek Machar and 10 others of attempting a coup. The army was split along ethnic lines. In 2015, a peace deal was signed and the opposition leader came back to form a coalition government. He returned in April 2016 to establish the transition government. Targeted ethnic killings followed, and Riek Machar fled the country and was pursued by the government security forces. As a consequence, social fabric was tearing apart, and human suffering reached unprecedented levels. Starvation and hunger, forced displacement, violence, and conflict all over the country, blocking of the humanitarian aid and protection forces, ruled by the gun, and predatory behavior against civilians by almost all the security forces, starvation and hunger, and so on and so on. About 400,000 people died, and more than a third of the country's 12 million people were uprooted, sparking Africa's worst refugee crisis since the 1994 Rwandan genocide. The statistics provided by Jesuit Refugee Service (JRS) South Sudan show that there are over 4.3 million refugees, internally displaced people, IDPs, and asylum seekers living in South Sudan. These are some of the survivors who have been spared or were able to flee for their lives. Much worse, they have first-hand account of the committed outrageous atrocities, mass killings on ethnic grounds, systematic use of sexual violence as weapon of war, women and girls being gang raped and burned alive in their dwelling, horrific crimes committed against children that included abduction, boys were castrated, girls raped and murdered, and similar acts of generational attacks on another ethnic group. In some parts of the country, the conflict continues until today, despite brief interruption of hostilities and last year's comprehensive peace agreement and the formation of coalition government. What is the way forward then? The way forward was to stop the spoilers of peace. that all signatories be part of the solution. Secondly, to adjust all the peace processes which involved reviewing the security and power agreement. And third, to have all convened political processes included. We thank God that there is much hope now under the new terms of peace agreement that came into effect on February 22, 2020. South Sudan is governed by a revitalized transitional government of national unity. How then are initiatives for central themes in Christianity of forgiveness, peace, social harmony, and reconciliation, according to Pope Francis, paragraph 252, expected to thrive in such a hostile context? In paragraph 232, the Pope says that there is no end to the building of country's social peace. Rather, it is an open-ended endeavor, a never-ending task that demands the commitment of everyone. In paragraph 237, Pope Francis adds that forgiveness is precisely what enables us to pursue justice without falling into a spiral of revenge or the injustice of forgetting. As a matter of fact, the church in South Sudan is still the only institution that is really trusted by the people. I have the confidence to say that our secondary school in Wau, Loyola Secondary School, is the only viable school in the state of Wau that functions pretty well. There are other church institutions and faith-based organizations that are also getting people to work together, side by side, helping to change behaviors through essential cultural, community services and activities, to provide peace-building education, health or relief services, to encourage disarmament, to disseminate ideas such as democracy and human rights, and so forth. It is also notable that the problems faced by South Sudanese are due to existing inequalities and lack of integral human development. Different forms of aggression and conflict have found their roots in South Sudan due to the lack of equal opportunities among different ethnic communities. These inequalities must be clearly identified in order to make peace possible. In the school, we have previously engaged in community and school-based peace-building initiatives such as inter-school sports, giving seminars and workshops, besides using other mediation initiatives such as dialogue that encourage participation, reconciliation, that rather than revengeful, implacable conflict. In paragraph 245, Pope Francis advises that when individuals and communities learn to look beyond their particular interests, then understanding and mutual commitment bear fruit to social injustices, and unity bears new life. The church is a family. In Africa, just like in many other nations such as the Philippines, family is very important. A family lives together, not in exclusivity. In paragraph 230, Pope Francis elucidates that in a family, like what, everyone contributes to the common purpose. Everyone works for the common good, not denying each person's individuality, but encouraging and supporting it. He instructs that to restore hope and to bring about renewal, the culture of encounter should be promoted and not isolation and withdrawal into one's own interest. Also refer to paragraph 30. As the only institution that transcends ethnic, political, and geographical divisions, the church in South Sudan must, for that reason, continue to offer the grounds for peace and reconciliation. Accordingly, Pope Francis in paragraph 244 of Fratelli Tutti encourages, and I quote, authentic reconciliation does not free from conflict, but it is achieved in conflict, resolving it through dialogue and open, honest, and patient negotiation. End of quote. Which means, therefore, that the promotion of peace by the church will not only be possible through an enduring commitment to know the historical truth of the events, and to strive for a new synthesis through an open, shared, and mutual dialogue that rejects revenge, exclusion, and manipulation. On the way to peace, the journey of mutual dialogue, which takes into account truth, justice, forgiveness, and reconciliation, must be hoped for with an enduring commitment to mutual trust and not vengeance. divergence. It must be dialogue that is triplicate in nature, that is dialogue of mercy, dialogue of action, and dialogue of hope. The chief problem why peace is lacking in South Sudan is predominantly revenge. In paragraph number 251, the Pope notes that revenge cannot bring about peace. Besides the antagonistic competition for power, interclan rivalry and revenge culture have dominated the violence in South Sudan. Ethnic communities believe in the law of retaliation, eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Revenge killings, known in some parts as blood compensation, have created an ending cycle of violence, the consequences for which are millions of orphans and widows who are also looking for an opportunity to revenge. It is obvious that the path to peace is completely devoid of people uniting for the sake of revenge, or treating others with the same violence with which they were treated, or plotting opportunities for retaliation. In South Sudan, revenge takes the form of elimination and disappearance of persons, extrajudicial killings, life imprisonment, and death penalty. Pope Francis remarks in paragraph 255 that war and death penalty are false answers, and that peace is not attainable through war and death penalty. Those two, he says, do no more than introduce new elements of destruction in the fabric of national and global society. As Jesuits living and working in a context that is defined by unending political, tribal, and ethnic conflict, we too have suffered in trying to act as beacons of hope for the downtrodden and oppressed people of South Sudan. In our mission to continue broadening and enriching paths of seeking peace and reconciliation, we find ourselves at the core of the violence. In 2006, for example, Jesuits who were working in the school in Wau were forced to march with guns pointed at them and paraded in a line with others. They were all going to be gunshot despite the frequent cry that they were Abunas. They kept crying, "We are Abunas, we are Abunas." That means we are priests, we are priests. It didn't take long that on the night of Monday, November 15, 2018, our Jesuit father, Victor Luke Odhiambo, was brutally murdered by assailants. At the time of his death, he was the principal of Mozarari Teachers College in Shebet, South Sudan, and acting superior of the community. Father Victor Luke had dedicated his life to the service of the people of South Sudan, the people of God, through education, calling for justice and reconciliation, promoting peace and advocating for complete disarmament in South Sudan. Shame-free and regrettably, Father Victor Luke Odhiambo didn't know that he was going to die for espousing the same call of disarmament. It is now 2 years gone, but the Jesuits of Eastern Africa continue preaching peace with the same unwavering spirit as before, and in solidarity with the local church and the people of South Sudan. It is only by doing so that we are able to promote peace and reconciliation, touching the wounded flesh of the victims, looking at the reality through the eyes of the wounded, and listening with an open heart to their stories. Thank you for listening.